awesome science with me. My name is Dr. Erica, and I am so excited that you are joining us as we start a new unit. So the last couple of weeks we were doing Indiana Jones, and we learned all about archaeology and digging things up. And this unit is actually going to be all about weather, and we're going to learn about the weather and some things that sort of help move the weather around the earth that we see. We're going to learn how to measure some parts of the weather, and we're even going to get to take a trip to the National Weather Center in Oklahoma next week, and we have one of their people that will be in Zoom with us on that day during the field trip. So I'm really excited about our field trip day for this unit. It's going to be a ton of fun. I just want to say, if you're new with us, make sure you click the subscribe button and follow us so that you know when we're live. And if you want to know what we're going to be doing beforehand, you should definitely check us out at patreon.com/RosieResearch. And it gets you all the things like the printouts and supply lists. It gets you into our Zoom room that we have after we go through the project in YouTube together. So it gets you some fun things, and it helps support the science that we make, so it's pretty awesome. And coming up in October, we're going to do some stuff with the oceans. We'll learn about the oceans, and we have a really cool low tide walk as our field trip for that. And then we're going to do some chemistry, because I know some of our friends specifically requested that we do a chemistry unit, so we have that coming up. And if you have something that you love, let us know. Send me an email at drerica@rosieresearch.com, and I am happy to put together a unit for something that you love too. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do today for our unit in weather is we are going to measure the sun. So I am going to tell you guys what you need to do to measure the sun and what you need for that. And then we'll talk a little bit about why measuring the sun or knowing about the sun might help impact our weather. So for today's project, you need a recycled cereal box, any sort of thin cardboard, so that kind of cardboard that they put like the cans, like the 12 cans of soda in, that works too. You need some aluminum foil. You don't need a whole lot, just a little bit. You're going to need a pencil, and that's going to do double duty today. You need some tape, and then you just need a little push pin. I have it in a cork here so it doesn't roll away and accidentally get on my kitchen floor, because that would be terrible to step on. That's all we need to measure the sun, which is kind of impressive, because you might be like, wait a second, Dr. Erica, how can I measure the sun with all of these things when the sun is massive? And we will show you how to do that today. Although sadly, we can't actually do that with you guys today, because we are sort of in the midst of a massive smoke ball from all the forest fires. We're up in Washington State, so we don't have a sun right now. In fact, we haven't seen the sun really for a few days because there's so much smoke. So we can't measure the sun if we can't see the sun. So you might be in the same position as us, and you could make the project so that when the sun does come out, you can then measure the sun, which is cool. So as you go and grab those items, let's learn about why the sun is important to weather. So if we were to look at planets further away from us, where there's still the sun, but it's actually just further away, maybe even Mars, which is the next planet out, you might notice Mars is missing some really important things. It's missing liquid water. It's not very warm on Mars, but Mars still has weather. There's still dust storms and everything like that. We can look to Jupiter. Jupiter still has storms. In fact, there's a storm on Jupiter that is so big, you could fit an entire Earth inside that storm. It's called the Eye of Jupiter, and you can see it in all the pictures. It's like Jupiter's sort of streaky lines, and then there's this little spot, and you can fit Earth in that spot. All of our planets have weather, but if we were to look at like an asteroid doesn't really have weather. There's no sun around it, which kind of plays a really significant role to it. Because when I think of the sun, okay, the sun is one type of weather. It could be sunny outside. It could be a clear and sunny and hot day. That's one way that sun impacts our weather. In the summer, I go out and it is a nice day, and that's because of the sun. But the sun also warms up the earth, all right? And a lot of the energy from the sun doesn't actually necessarily warm up the air as it's coming through. It warms up the earth, and then earth warms up the air, which is interesting because hot air is lighter than cold air. So we have our little earth that's getting really, really warm from the sun during the day, and it creates this hot air, and that hot air likes to rise, likes to go up through the colder air. And it doesn't just like go up in like a tunnel. Like as it goes, it sort of swirls, just like smoke from a candle swirls and moves. It's really chaotic, which means you can't really know how it's going to react. But when we get hot air and cold air together, that can change things. It can lift water up and make clouds. It can make wind that can blow things around so you can get weather that way. It can change the way that the hot air over the oceans is, and that can change things with the ocean. There's all these different things that the sun does that we experience every single day, even for us in Seattle right now when we can't see the sun, which is really cool. So I thought it would be really fun to measure the sun and see just how big that sun is, which is going to be hard today, again, because we're covered in smoke. But that's okay. So we know a lot of stuff about the sun. In fact, we know what the sun is made of, and you can go back through our YouTube stuff if you want to see that experiment. We can show you how to discover what the sun is made of, which is the exact same way that real scientists did it when they discovered what it was from. And we can also measure the sun with just these things. So we can learn a lot about the sun without going over to the sun, which is good because the sun is really, really hot. We can't really send a spaceship out to the sun to have it go and take measurements or take samples and bring it back. That doesn't work for us. We have to do everything that we learned about the sun from right here. All right, so how are we gonna measure the sun? Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a pinhole camera. And that little pinhole camera will take a picture of the sun, and depending on how far away our camera is from when we take that picture of our sun, we can use that and the size of the sun on our picture. It's going to be really small, but the size of the sun on our picture, we can use those two distances and do a little bit of math, and we'll get the whole thing. We'll figure out the whole sun, which is really cool. So let's get started. We're going to take our cereal box, and I do need some scissors. Hang on, I've got my scissors right here. I do need some scissors because I'm just realizing I need to cut the top of my cereal box off. Now, if you want to make a regular pinhole camera, you could actually do all of this into like one side of the cereal box, and you could leave the other side as a spot for looking through to see the image, which is cool. Although, if somebody requests it, we could also make pinhole cameras. We could do a whole thing about photography and the science of photography. That'd be a fun unit to do. And I make some really cool pinhole cameras in my summer camps. We make them out of really big PVC tubes, and they work really well, which is pretty neat. All right, so I just need one piece of that cardboard. And what we're gonna do is you're gonna take your little push pin, and really carefully, you're gonna push that pin through, sort of right in the middle, exactly where it doesn't matter. So sort of in the middle-ish. I'm gonna just create a little hole by pushing that through. And then I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm gonna push it through this hole to make the hole a bit bigger. Doesn't have to be huge, just a little bit bigger for my hole. That's really important. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to take a piece of foil and we're gonna tape it over the top of that hole. So we just need one piece of foil. All right, and I don't even need this much. I can actually cut this down. It just needs to cover up that hole really nicely. I'm gonna take my piece of foil and I'm gonna tape it right over that hole. All right, so I'm gonna do that really quickly. And I would tape all the way around it, so don't just sort of add like little pieces of tape on the corners and then leave the outsides open. We want this to be really well taped down so that the light can't get through it. So I'm gonna tape all the way, all of the edges, and get full pieces of tape on it. All right, and that will help us make a better image of the sun. All right, and then my last piece, just to make sure it all stays down, it's really like tight, is what we like. We're almost done. Can you believe that? We are almost ready to measure our sun. So right now, nothing can get through this. I do have this hole in the back, and if you wanted to, you could sort of rip away some of this cardboard that's sort of puckering up. You don't really need to. should not really change what you're doing. And what we're gonna do now is you're going to sort of feel for your hole, and you're gonna poke just one time. You're gonna poke your little thumbnail or your thumbtack through there. All right, just one hole, boop, just like that, and I'm done. All right, we don't wanna make it bigger with our pencil, so just one little thumb hole, and then we are all done. And on the back, you should be able to see the hole through that pencil hole that you made. All right, and what we'll do when we have a sun and we can image it is we are going to take the sun and it's gonna shine through this hole. And you're gonna make it so that you can sort of see the sun through the hole. All right, and then we'll draw, you could even draw a little circle around the sun. Let me flip this over. So this is what you would see. You'd see like a little circle, just like that. As I'm holding it, I've got the sun really far away, and I would end up with this little tiny circle. All right, and then I can measure how big is this circle and how far away is this. All right, and it tells me where to put them. All right, it tells me this is the diameter of the sun on your paper. So that's how big is that little circle? Is it like 1/4 of a centimeter? Is it a centimeter? Is it 2 centimeters? I'm not sure, but you're gonna put that in there. So maybe I'll say mine is 1/4 of a centimeter. I have no idea.
We're actually getting sunlight.
Because, well, even if we have sunlight, we actually have to have the sun itself. So, yes. So, I don't quite know, but let's say that's 1/4. And let's say it's 1/4 of a centimeter when I'm up here. And maybe that's, I don't know, 15 centimeters. So you would put that in also. Just like this. And you would get out your calculator. You might need your mom or dad to help you. And you'll put in 0.25 divided by 15 times this really big number. And it's not thousands. It's not millions. It's not billions. It's trillions. So it's 14,960 billion centimeters away. You notice I used the same unit for everything. I used centimeters here. I measured in centimeters. I measured this in centimeters. And then I looked at the distance of the sun in centimeters, which was 14 trillion. And when I plug this into the calculation, in my calculator, I would get an actual diameter of the sun. And you will be close. You could look up on your computer, what is the true diameter of the sun? And you could see how close did I get, which is kind of a cool way to check it out too. So again, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go outside on a sunny day when you have the sun, and you are going to sort of move this guy forward and back. You'll see the sun come through. I don't think we're gonna see anything of ours come through because it's not very bright, and you need something from the sun that is gonna be, yeah, you can't see it because of the way we're doing this. But on the next sunny day, we will take a picture of us doing this project. I thought in my head, ooh, it's a risky project to do because the sun might not come out, and we live in Seattle, so it's a super risky project. But in my head, it was gonna be beginning of September, and usually we can count on sun in the beginning of September. In fact, I think it's actually a sunny day today, minus the fact that we can't see into our outside world because of all the smoke. So to be fair to the sun, I'm pretty sure it did show up today. It's just, I don't know, maybe it showed up a little too much in the more recent weeks that have all these fires going. So that is a fun way to check out the sun, which is a really big thing that impacts our weather. Without the sun, slowly over time, we don't have heat coming in. And over time, we would start to, our water, our oceans would freeze, our winds would probably die down. And then after the sun goes out, like, we just become this sort of ball of rock, right? So the sun it doesn't create our weather, but it really drives and impacts our weather, which is really cool. So I thought it was a fun little quick project that we could do. Something that is really powerful too, because then you can say, I measured the sun. And people will be like, Dr. Erica, there's no chance you measured the sun. How did you get in a spaceship and go out there? And you could be like, oh, no. I measured the sun with some foil and a paper tack and some cardboard. And they'll be like, what? What kind of inventor are you? So it's a really cool thing to talk about. And you can tell all of your friends and your family all about how you can measure these things which is super cool. All right, we are going to head out into our Zoom room so we can get any questions from parents that we might have. And then we will see you guys tomorrow as we engineer some wind vanes as we can measure the direction of the wind that we go. And soon we will also learn about how planes fly using some ping pong balls and a straw, and how that also has something to do with weather. And we'll make clouds in a jar later on next week. That one's next week, which is cool. And we'll even see how strong air can be. It'll be really fun. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and I will see our friends in the Zoom room. Have a good afternoon.